The genius son of a black cleaning lady solved $100 million problem in seconds, but when he saw the CEO's reaction, he realized he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus Williams, 19, never imagined that delivering a pizza to the 20th floor of Technova Solutions would turn into the most humiliating moment of his existence. As he waited for his payment at the reception desk, his eyes were fixed on the giant screen where dozens of engineers were frantically discussing a flawed algorithm that was costing the company millions a day. "My God, they're using the completely wrong data structure," he muttered, watching the code projected on the wall. The receptionist, a blonde woman in high heels, rolled her eyes. "Sure, the pizza delivery guy knows advanced programming. What a joke." Marcus ignored the sarcasm, but couldn't take his eyes off the screen. The error was as obvious to him as breathing. A simple reorganization of the binary tree and the implementation of distributed hashing would solve everything in a matter of seconds. "Excuse me," he said, addressing the group of executives passing through the lobby. "That algorithm there, you're using linear search where you should be using hash indexing. That's why it's crashing." The silence was deafening. 12 men in suits stared at the young black man in a delivery uniform as if he had just spoken in an alien language. Richard Blackstone, the company's CEO, a 50-year-old man with perfectly combed gray hair, laughed a low, cruel laugh. "Kid, do you have any idea how many PhDs in computer science have been working on this project for the last 6 months?" Marcus felt the heat rise in his neck, but he kept his voice steady. "I know you've lost 97 million so far because the system crashes every 200,000 simultaneous queries." Blackstone's laughter died in his throat. That specific number had not been made public. "And how the hell would you know that?" asked the Vice President of Technology, Dr. Harrison, approaching suspiciously. Marcus took a deep breath. His mother, Rosa Williams, had been cleaning these offices for 15 years. During the early mornings while she worked, he did his homework in the empty rooms, unintentionally absorbing technical conversations and documents left on the desks, but revealing that would humiliate his mother even more. "Just observation," he replied simply. Blackstone crossed his arms, a wicked smile forming on his lips. "All right, little genius. If you're so smart, prove it. Solve our problem." The challenge echoed through the lobby like a sentence. All eyes turned to Marcus, some amused, others clearly expecting an epic humiliation. What none of them knew was that this young pizza delivery boy had been accepted to Stanford at 16, but had turned down the scholarship to care for his diabetic mother. Marcus looked at the screen, then at the expectant faces around him. Something flashed in his eyes, not fear, but a quiet determination that made some of those present realize that they might have seriously underestimated the person standing before them. "All right," he said, pulling a battered smartphone from his pocket. "But when I get this sorted out, I want you all to remember that you judged a book by its cover. If this story of prejudice and overcoming adversity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of humiliation would become the catalyst for a revolution that no one would ever forget." Dr. Harrison laughed loudly, a sound that echoed through the lobby like breaking glass. "This is going to be better than comedy. Someone call security to film when he falls flat on his face." Marcus watched as a small crowd gathered around the screen. Employees appeared from every floor, whispering and pointing at the pizza delivery guy, who had dared to challenge decades of engineering expertise. 15 minutes, Blackstone declared, consulting his gold Rolex. "If you can't even improve our performance by 10%, I want you out of here and never to come back. And take your mother with you." Marcus's blood ran cold. How did Blackstone know about his mother? "Oh yes," the CEO continued with a venomous smile, "Rosa Williams, our night cleaning lady for the past 15 years. Hardworking woman, but perhaps it's time for mandatory retirement. Especially if she finds out she raised a lying son." The humiliation burned in Marcus's chest like acid. His mother had sacrificed everything, nights of sleep, her health, her dreams, so that he could study. She had worked 3 jobs after his father abandoned them, cleaning offices until the wee hours of the morning while Marcus did his homework in the dark corners of corporate buildings. "Problem, kid?" Blackstone asked, noticing the tension on Marcus's face. "Still want to play programmer?" Marcus took a deep breath, remembering the words his mother always repeated, "Son, when they try to humiliate you, it's because they're afraid of what you're capable of." "You can start timing me," Marcus said, approaching the terminal. The blonde receptionist, Sarah, according to her ID, filmed everything with her cell phone. "This is going to go viral," she whispered to a colleague. "Influencer doing a tech challenge." Marcus ignored the comments and focused on the screen. The system was even more complex than he had imagined. Layers upon layers of poorly optimized code, like a house built without a proper foundation. But his trained eyes, forged by nights studying in public libraries and free tutorials on the internet, identified the pattern immediately. As he typed, he remembered all the times he had been underestimated. At school, where teachers treated him like just another lost case from the suburbs. At the Stanford exam, where the interviewer questioned whether he really belonged there. In his own decision to turn down the full scholarship, when everyone told him he was wasting his only chance to escape poverty. 10 minutes, announced Blackstone, clearly expecting to witness an epic failure. Dr. Harrison approached, watching the code Marcus was writing. His confident expression began to waver. "Wait, that can't be right." Marcus had completely restructured the data architecture in less than 8 minutes. Where there had been 300 lines of confusing code, there were now 47 elegant and efficient lines. "What did you do?" asked a curly-haired engineer, genuinely curious. "I treated the system like I would treat a family budget," Marcus replied without taking his eyes off the screen. "When you have little, you learn to do a lot. I cut out everything that was superfluous and organized the essentials." Blackstone approached, his smile beginning to fade. "That's impossible. Our best minds have been working on this project for 6 months." "Maybe the problem wasn't the minds," Marcus said calmly, "but the perspectives. When you've never had to make a dollar last a week, it's hard to understand real efficiency." The tension in the air was palpable. Employees exchanged nervous glances, realizing that something unexpected was happening. 5 minutes, Blackstone muttered, but his voice had lost its previous confidence. Marcus finished the last lines of code and stepped away from the terminal. "Done. You can test it." Dr. Harrison hesitated, then started the simulation. The screen flashed, numbers cascaded down, and then, total silence. The system had processed 200,000 simultaneous queries in 3 seconds. 0 crashes. 0 errors. That's not possible," someone whispered in the crowd. Marcus looked directly at Blackstone. 97% improvement in performance. 90% reduction in processing time. The monthly cost of the servers should be cut in half. The lobby was deathly silent. Sarah had stopped filming, her mouth agape. Even the arrogant receptionist seemed to have swallowed her tongue. Blackstone clenched his fists, his face red with anger and humiliation. "That was luck. A trick. You copied that from somewhere." "I can do it again from scratch if you want," Marcus offered calmly. "Or explain every line of code to your team. Maybe even give you a few lessons in system optimization." That was when Blackstone made his biggest mistake. Completely losing his composure, he shouted for the entire company to hear, "I will not be humiliated by a black pizza delivery boy. Security! Get this bum out of here." The silence that followed was deafening. Dozens of cell phones had captured those words. The racism that Blackstone had disguised for years had just exploded in public. Marcus stood motionless, a barely perceptible smile on his lips. He had achieved exactly what he needed to. Not only had he solved the technical problem, but he had exposed the true nature of the man who ran that company. "Interesting," said Marcus, calmly picking up his backpack. "Because under state labor law, racial discrimination in the workplace is a federal crime. And considering that about 20 people filmed this." Each new word that came out of Blackstone's mouth only dug deeper into the hole of his own destruction, while Marcus stood there with the serenity of someone who had just turned a moment of humiliation into the first piece of a much more complex game that was only just beginning. Blackstone's words still echoed through Technova when Marcus left the building. 20 minutes later, he found his mother, Rosa Williams, preparing dinner in the small apartment they had shared for 19 years. She looked at her son's face and immediately knew something had happened. "Tell me everything," she said, turning off the stove and sitting down at the scratched Formica table. Marcus recounted every detail, from the moment he saw the error in the code to Blackstone's racist words being filmed by dozens of people. Rosa listened silently, her eyes filling with tears of pride and concern. "My son," she said finally, "do you have any idea what you've just done?" "I've probably made the biggest mistake of my life," Marcus sighed. I've exposed myself, and now. Now, Rosa interrupted firmly, you've shown who you really are. And if this man thinks he can destroy our family after 15 years of me sweating to clean up his mistakes, he doesn't know the Williams family. She stood up and went to the closet, pulling out a dusty shoebox. Inside were letters, documents, and photographs. Son, there are things about Technova you don't know. Things I've seen during all these years of working nights. Marcus looked at the papers with growing surprise. Fraudulent contracts, printed emails about illegal dismissals, photographs of executives using drugs in the company bathrooms. Mom, did you collect all this? When you're invisible, Rosa smiled sadly, people talk and do things as if you don't exist. For 15 years, I saw and heard much more than I should have. The next day, Marcus received an unexpected call. Hello, is this Marcus Williams? My name is David Chun. I'm an investigative journalist with TechWatch News. I saw the video that went viral yesterday about your interaction with Richard Blackstone. Marcus hesitated. I'm not sure I want to give interviews. It's not an interview, David interrupted. It's a proposal for collaboration. I've been investigating illegal labor practices at Technova for 2 years. I have inside sources who confirm a systematic pattern of discrimination, but I need more solid evidence. They met at a discreet cafe in the city center. David was a middle-aged man with graying hair and piercing eyes that revealed years of experience exposing corporate corruption. Marcus, that video was just the tip of the iceberg, David explained, showing him a folder filled with documents. Blackstone has a history of firing black employees for fabricated reasons, paying women less than men for identical jobs, and using questionable accounting schemes to avoid taxes. Marcus flipped through the documents, recognizing some names of former employees his mother had mentioned over the years. What do you need from me? Inside access. Your mother has worked there for 15 years, you have exceptional technical skills, and now Blackstone has made the mistake of publicly underestimating you. He'll try to cover up the video scandal, but if we can get additional evidence, we can destroy him completely, Marcus finished, a determined gleam appearing in his eyes. Meanwhile, at Technova's offices, Blackstone had called an emergency meeting with his legal and public relations departments. The video had surpassed 200,000 views in less than 24 hours. I want that kid and his mother out of my sight by the end of the week, he raged. And I want someone to find a way to invalidate the solution he created. There must be a mistake somewhere. Dr. Harrison, who had remained unusually quiet since the incident, finally spoke up. Richard, maybe we should consider offering the boy a position. He clearly has talent, and it could help with our public image. Are you crazy? Blackstone exploded. I'm not going to reward some arrogant kid who humiliated me in public. Find a way to get rid of him, or I'll find people who can. What Blackstone didn't know was that Dr. Harrison had discreetly recorded the entire conversation on his phone. Years of observing the CEO's questionable practices had finally reached a breaking point when he witnessed genuine talent being rejected out of pure prejudice. That night, Harrison called a number David Chun had given Marcus. I have something you guys will want to hear, he said simply. Over the next few days, Marcus was transformed. During the day, he continued to deliver pizzas and maintain the appearance of normalcy. But at night, he worked with David and now Harrison to methodically document every irregularity at Technova. They uncovered a frightening pattern: overpriced software development contracts for shell companies, minority employees being systematically passed over for promotions, and a scheme where Blackstone sold insider information about products in development to competitors. We have enough material to destroy his career and bankrupt the company, David said during one of their nightly meetings at Marcus's apartment. No, Marcus replied calmly, surprising everyone. We don't want to destroy the company. There are good people there, honest employees who depend on these jobs. We want something more surgical. Rosa smiled, recognizing the wisdom she had tried to teach her son for years. The best revenge isn't to stoop to their level, son. It's rising so high that they feel tiny looking up at you. Marcus nodded, a plan beginning to form in his mind. Blackstone thinks I'm just an ignorant pizza delivery guy. Let's use that arrogance against him. He turned to David. You said you have contacts on Technova's board of directors. 3 members who are growing increasingly dissatisfied with Blackstone's management. Why? Marcus smiled, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. Because we're going to give them an alternative they never saw coming. Blackstone wants to humiliate me publicly? Perfect. We'll give him exactly that opportunity. As they planned, none of them noticed a shadowy figure watching the apartment from a window in the building next door. Blackstone had hired a private investigator to monitor the Williams family, certain he would find something compromising. What he didn't know was that his own paranoia was about to become the final catalyst for his destruction. Every desperate move he made only provided more evidence for the dossier that was quietly growing against him. Marcus looked at his mother, then at David and Harrison. Are you ready to turn the tables completely? They all nodded, and at that moment, sitting in the humble kitchen where Rosa had raised a genius, a plan was born that would not only transform their lives, but redefine what true justice meant in the corporate world. The boy Blackstone had tried to humiliate was about to become his worst nightmare, and the twist would be as elegant as it was devastating. The Technova conference room had never seen a meeting like this. Blackstone had summoned the entire board of directors, the local tech press, and representatives of major investors for what he called a demonstration of leadership and corporate integrity. Gentlemen, Blackstone declared, adjusting his Italian tie, I have brought you here today to witness how we deal with problematic employees and attempts to defame our company. At the entrance to the room, Marcus entered calmly, wearing the same simple shirt as always. Blackstone smiled like a predator who had just smelled blood. Ah, our famous pizza genius has arrived, Blackstone announced to the entire room. I hope you've recorded this, because today you're going to see a lying kid get completely exposed. Marcus sat down in the chair indicated to him, noticing the cameras strategically positioned around the room. Perfect. Just as he had planned. Mr. Williams, Blackstone began, walking theatrically around the table, you claimed that you improved our system by 97%. Our experts have discovered that this was pure luck. An amateur trick. Dr. Harrison, sitting at the back of the room, exchanged a nervous glance with Marcus. The plan was working exactly as planned. In fact, Blackstone continued, we've discovered that you and your mother are involved in a scheme to steal intellectual property from our company. We have evidence that she photographed confidential documents during her nightly cleanings. A shocked murmur rippled through the room. Marcus remained motionless, but his eyes flashed with an intensity that made some of those present shift uncomfortably in their seats. That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Blackstone, Marcus said calmly. I hope you have proof to back that up. Of course I do. Blackstone shouted, quickly losing his composure. I hired a private investigator who documented everything. Photos of your mother in places she shouldn't have been, the two of you meeting with suspicious people. Marcus nodded slowly. Interesting. And this private investigator, did he follow you as well? Blackstone stopped walking. What do you mean by that? Marcus took a tablet out of his pocket and connected it to the room's projection system. Because while your private detective was following me, David Chun from TechWatch News was investigating something much more interesting. The first image that appeared on the screen was a photo of Blackstone leaving an expensive restaurant with a man in a suit. The date showed 3 weeks ago. This is Vladimir Petrov, representative of TechCorp Russia, Marcus explained to the increasingly silent room. Technova's direct competitor. You were discussing the sale of proprietary algorithms for $12 million. Blackstone's face paled instantly. That's fake. A montage. Marcus clicked again. This time, the screen showed an audio recording. Blackstone's unmistakable voice filled the room. The machine learning algorithm is worth at least $20 million on the black market. I can deliver the complete source code by the end of the month. That's been taken out of context. Blackstone shouted, but his voice had lost all authority. Context. Marcus smiled for the first time. Let's give some more context then. The next sequence of slides showed forged contracts, emails about racially motivated dismissals, and photographs of executives using drugs in the company bathrooms. Exactly the material Rosa had discreetly collected over 15 years. My God, murmured one of the investors. Richard, is this true? But Marcus wasn't finished yet. The screen now showed the complete recording of the original meeting between him and Blackstone, including the racist words that had been cut from some videos leaked online. And now, said Marcus, his voice growing stronger, the part that really matters. The last presentation showed the actual financial results of implementing Marcus's algorithm. In 2 weeks, it had saved the company exactly $143 million in operating costs and increased the system's efficiency by 120%. All of that, Marcus said, looking directly at Blackstone, was generated by a solution created by a black pizza delivery kid, using knowledge gained while my mother, a dignified woman who worked 15 years at this company, cleaned up the mistakes you left behind. The silence in the room was deafening. Blackstone was visibly shaking, sweat pouring down his forehead. You planned this. You set me up. No, Marcus replied calmly, turning off the projector. You set yourself up. I just documented it. At that moment, David Chun entered the room accompanied by 2 federal agents. Richard Blackstone, you are under arrest for industrial espionage, racial discrimination in the workplace, and tax fraud. As Blackstone was handcuffed, he shouted desperately, "This is persecution. You can't do this to me. I built this company." Marcus stood up, adjusted his simple shirt, and looked at the man who had tried to destroy his family. "Mr. Blackstone, the difference between us is simple. You used your position to oppress people. I used my intelligence to protect them." As Blackstone was led away, one of the board members approached Marcus. "Mr. Williams, we'd like to discuss a proposal with you. We're in need of a new CEO." Marcus smiled, thinking of his mother, who at that moment was probably preparing dinner in the small apartment that would soon no longer be necessary. "I'll consider it. But first, I need to deliver a pizza." The room erupted in nervous laughter, but everyone understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The boy Blackstone had tried to humiliate had become the architect of his own destruction, proving that true justice does not come from blind revenge, but from intelligent patience and the courage to expose the truth when the right moment finally arrives. 6 months later, Marcus Williams walked through the halls of Technova no longer as a pizza delivery boy, but as the youngest CEO in the company's history. At 20 years old, he led a team of 200 employees and oversaw contracts worth billions of dollars annually. The irony was lost on no one. The same lobby where he had been humiliated now displayed his picture on the executive wall, just below the corporate slogan he had created himself: "Excellence has no color, only results." "How does it feel to be called Silicon Valley's youngest and most innovative CEO?" asked the Forbes reporter during the interview for the magazine's cover story. Marcus smiled, adjusting his tie, which still felt strange after months of wearing one. "Funny, 6 months ago I was just the black pizza delivery boy." Apparently, the title changes when you save a company from bankruptcy. Technova's transformation had been spectacular. Under Marcus's leadership, the company had not only recovered the $97 million it had lost, but tripled its market value. His revolutionary algorithm was being licensed to companies around the world. Rosa Williams, now retired with a generous pension that Marcus had insisted on establishing for all of the company's cleaning staff, watched proudly from the front row during her son's Executive of the Year award ceremony. "I never doubted it," she whispered to her friends. "I always knew that boy would fly high. I just didn't know he would fly so high that even I couldn't reach him." Meanwhile, Richard Blackstone had become a complete pariah in the corporate world. After leaving federal prison, where he spent 4 months for industrial espionage and racial discrimination, no technology company would hire him. His former executive colleagues crossed the street to avoid greeting him. His golf club canceled his membership, his ex-wife had filed for divorce and taken half of his remaining assets, and he now lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, working as a freelance consultant for small businesses that didn't know about his scandalous past. The fall had been as brutal as it was public. Videos of his arrest still circulated on social media, always accompanied by comments about karma and poetic justice. Dr. Harrison, who had become vice president of Technova, often commented at executive meetings, "I've never seen such a complete turnaround." Marcus turned humiliation into inspiration, and Blackstone turned privilege into prison. During a conference on diversity in the corporate environment, Marcus was asked how he had managed to forgive those who had tried to destroy him. "Forgive?" Marcus chuckled. "I didn't forgive him. I just used the energy he gave me more intelligently. Blackstone taught me that the best revenge isn't to bring your enemy down to your level, but to rise so high that he becomes irrelevant." Sarah, the former arrogant receptionist who had mocked him, now worked at a small accounting firm after being fired for inappropriate customer service. Whenever she saw Marcus in the news, she felt a twinge of regret, remembering how she had completely underestimated him. The conference room where it all began was renovated and transformed into the Marcus Williams Innovation Center, a space dedicated to encouraging employees from all backgrounds to share ideas without fear of judgment. On the wall, a gold plaque bears the phrase Marcus repeated during his first speech as CEO: "Genius ignored today is the revolution of tomorrow." Marcus maintained a simple routine. Every Friday night, he still volunteered to deliver pizzas to shelters in the city. "To remember where I came from," he explained. "And so that other young people can see that it doesn't matter where you are today, it matters where you are going." David Chun, the journalist who had helped expose the corruption, wrote a book about the case that became a bestseller. The title, From Delivery Boy to CEO: How Truth Broke Down an Empire of Lies. 2 years after his initial humiliation, Marcus received an invitation to speak at Stanford University, the same university he had turned down to take care of his mother. At the end of the presentation, a student raised his hand. "If you could go back in time, would you change anything?" Marcus thought for a moment, looking at the auditorium filled with inspired young people. "I would change only one thing. I would have delivered that pizza 5 minutes earlier, so I would have had more time to see Blackstone's shocked face when he realized he had underestimated the wrong kid." The audience exploded in laughter and applause. Richard Blackstone tried to destroy a talented young black man, but ended up unwittingly building the legend of Marcus Williams. The former CEO learned the hard way that true revenge is not getting even for humiliation. It's achieving such resounding success that your oppressors spend the rest of their lives wondering how they could have been so blind. If this story of overcoming adversity touched you, subscribe to the channel to discover more real stories of people who turned injustice into fuel for extraordinary success.